Anyway, Gramps, how are you today?
I'm good, thanks, Connor. You?
I'm doing pretty good.
Good.
Um, let's just get right on to it. My first question for you is, how long were you in the industry?
I was in radio for over 40 years, starting in 1971.
My second question is, how was working in the radio compared to other jobs you had?
Well, I really didn't have any other jobs. Thing is that when I was in high school, they had this thing where you had to choose what it is you want to be, and you went on these work study programs, and for 2 weeks every year they would say, okay, where do you want to work? And we'll set you up, and you get to go out and intern for 2 weeks. And I said, I want to go to a radio station. So they sent me to the bank. They sent me to the Royal Bank to work there because they couldn't find a radio station that would take me. I lasted for about a week. And they said, "Well, come on back to school and just don't bother." I always knew I wanted to be in radio.
It's pretty good. I just assumed you had other jobs and...
Well, I mean, high school part-time work. I delivered Chinese food. I worked in a grocery store. My very first job was working as a helper on the milk truck because you had daily door-to-door milk delivery at the time, and I worked every Saturday for the milk truck for $3 a day.
So nothing really huge?
No, nothing. Sorry.
It's fine. How were the people, like your boss and colleagues?
Well, it's like every industry in that you're going to run across fabulous, wonderful people, and you're going to run across real dinks.
Yeah.
The problem with media, radio, television, newspaper, whatever, is you're always going to run into people with egos.
Yeah.
And these are the guys who say, and did you hear me when I said? Did you hear me when I said?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
What was your contribution in revolutionizing the way we look at radio?
Oh, I don't know if I revolutionized radio at all.
But you must have done something to change a little bit, even in your workplace.
I'm trying to think. I mean, that's a fascinating question. I've never ever looked at my career as being a revolutionary type of operation. No, I just didn't revolutionize anything. There was a time in Toronto radio, at CFTR specifically, in which I was doing evenings, and I was embellishing the newscasts with adjectives and various descriptions. And there were people who thought that it was borderline pandering towards violence and whatever. And at that time, we came up for a license renewal from the federal government, and so all of our suits went to Ottawa, and they were expressing their big plans for the future. And normally every radio license at that time was rubber stamped 5 years. There you go. They said, wait a minute, what about this? And they hit this record button, and they had my newscasts on tape, and it was bloated bodies bobbing in the Bay of Bengal after that terrible earthquake, and things like. And they said, well, that's just the news. Oh no, that's not news. That's sensationalism. That's yellow journalism. You shouldn't be doing this. And they only renewed the radio license for 18 months. It was a real slap on the wrist. And I had people coming into the newsroom and crying and say, we're all going to lose our jobs and it's all your fault. The Ontario government started a violence in the media investigation, a commission, and it was chaired by a lady whose name was Judy LaMarche. And she phoned me and she said, do you have any tapes, any air checks? I said, I don't keep them. But if you want, I'll be glad to read some off for you because we keep the newscast for 30 days. I'll re-record them for you. Finally, the general manager of the station held a station-wide meeting, and he said, look, all this newspaper coverage about the whole thing, it was a scandal. It was a radio scandal. And he said, we've never had better publicity. We've never had to pay for publicity like this. Get off Larry's back. And my immediate boss, Bob Holliday, pulled me aside and he said, you know, I think if you tried to be a little more clever in your writing, you'll be able to avoid a lot more trouble in the future. So instead of using a sledgehammer, I went and started to use other tools to get my same point across.
It's pretty amazing. I mean, just from you being on the radio, doing your thing, you got all this publicity. You got, the people looking at radio a different way, and kind of, pushed into thinking. Your views at the time on radio and talking the way that you did, you didn't see that as an issue, but it kind of, seeing as how other people take it, you took that as a learning step.
I did, and I'm not going to lie about this. I wasn't the only person in the country doing it at that time. I was the loudest one in Toronto doing it, but I wasn't the only one.
Yeah. At least you were able to better yourself, and that was a learning step, and that obviously helped you gain a lot of skills later.
Oh, sure. And it didn't hurt my career at all, because eventually I became news director of CFTR. So, it didn't cripple my career at all.
Do you think you inspired anybody to become a radio newscaster, or?
Well, I don't know. I know that I've had people that I've hired who wanted to be like me, who wanted to emulate my on-air style. But whether someone was listening to the radio one day and said, "Boy, one day I want to be a radio newscaster," I don't know. I have no idea. I'm sure there are strange people.
Yeah. Were all your positions in radio as a talk show host or a newscaster, or did you play more roles in the industry?
My very first job was a disc jockey, and that was straight. I didn't even finish the radio college course because I got this full-time job at the North Bay radio station. But at that time, you did everything. You had to read your commercials, you had to read the news, you had to introduce the records, and and even go out and sell advertising somewhere in your day. So I did a little bit of that, but primarily I was always a newscaster, and it was late in my career before I did talk shows.
Yeah, because I do remember you doing talk shows, and my dad said he was more of a newscaster. I mean, when I was coming up with these questions, I put, talk show host most. But how has radio evolved in the past couple of decades, or even as far as when you just started?
Well, I'm looking at it from the wrong end of the telescope here, but radio has become a lot worse. Radio, I believe, originally was set up in order to serve a community. And now you don't get service from radio today. You don't, they have a cursory weather forecast, because they have a cursory traffic report that doesn't help anyone get to work any faster. And radio news is homogenous and non-existent anymore.
Yeah, I mean, even, my mom likes the Country Channel, right?
Yeah, they've got a great morning show.
But just listening to it, I find a lot of the people on it to be obnoxious and just kind of loud in everybody else's face. They're trying too hard to kind of push new ideas that me and my mom see are just not working. Mm-hmm. Like on the country radio, there's a woman that my mom absolutely hates, and she just shuts off the radio because of it, because she's just obnoxious. She's got a voice that just sounds sour, and she's just full of herself, and my mom doesn't like that. So,
well, in many times, like radio today, every station has a consultant, and who they'll come in, and what they try to do is take the morning show personalities that are there and try to define what role each person is to play on that show. Remember, this is show business.
Yeah.
Okay, it's reality radio, and so and so will be the metrosexual who likes art and fine dining, and so will be the outdoors person who likes to fish and go camping, and then you're going to have your ecologist, your your green tree hugger type of person, and that's what the roles that they are assigned and that they have to do.
What's the craziest stories you have from your many years in the industry?
Craziest stories.
Like, did you meet any, famous people? Did you party with, David Bowie?
Oh, I wish I had. I bet you he could put on a party. The famous people that I've interviewed a lot of recording artists. Bill Cosby, the comedian, and members of the Beach Boys, and bands like that you've never heard of. But we did an on-site broadcast from a rock festival called Canada Jam, and it was at just outside of Oshawa at the racetrack out there. And we started at 6 o'clock in the morning, and the bands played all day and all through the night. Now, they didn't shut down until 2 or 3 in the morning, and we were on the air every hour, and every band came through for an interview. So it was the Commodores and Wahoo and Kansas, and bands that had hit records at the time. So I've been very fortunate to meet a lot of these people, and they're all terrific.
Do you have any tips for anyone that might want to start a podcast or get into radio?
I think those are two different things, podcasting and radio. Radio has regulations, and you have to answer to somebody, and podcasts you don't.
Yeah.
That's all up to you. If I had one thing to offer, I'd say be yourself.
Even in the radio industry with your boss telling you what to do and everything?
Yep. Be yourself. Because otherwise, if you don't stand out, you're not going to be noticed. If you become just part of the canvas in the background, you're not going to make any money.
Do you what is the difference between podcasting and radio? A lot of podcasts that I've watched have been really similar to talk shows. Even though they don't have to follow set rules, it's still people talking about just having discussions about things and telling their views, and I notice that a lot on the radio as well.
Mm-hmm.
But what's
Well, the difference obviously is podcasting becomes popular when the great public can find it, when they can find it. People, I don't believe, go on their computer to listen to the radio.
Nobody does.
Nobody does, but they'll go and look for a podcast.
Yeah.
So radio does not have, and I'm talking terrestrial radio that just brought, the signal leaving the transmitter. It doesn't have the reach that a podcast does. It just you can't get the same size audience.
Yeah. I watched a lot of podcasts, and I just think it's great. I personally wouldn't become somebody from the radio. I kind of want to look into starting my own podcast, just with a couple of friends, and I think that'd just be great. I think it's just fun having a conversation or discussing some views and just having a good time talking to your friends, and then putting that up for other people to enjoy.
Yeah. How do you make money on it?
It'd just be for enjoyment. On YouTube, if you put it on YouTube and you get enough subscribers, that's when you'd be making money. But
that would be the ultimate goal.
That would be the ultimate goal, to make money off of it.
Yeah, ideally, if you have a talent for that, and there's nothing that's apparent that says to me that you don't, but if you have a talent, get paid for it. I once interviewed a a comedian. He actually had a radio show for a short time in Toronto. His name was John Candy, and John Candy was he's a world famous comic, and he's dead now. But he said to me, he said, Larry, this is show business, and that's 2 words, which is a very profound statement, because it means I'm going to put on a show, and I'm going to get paid for it. You know, you don't invite a doctor over to your house for dinner and say, listen, as long as you're here, have a look at this wart on my back. What do you think this is in? A smart doctor says, make an appointment at my office.
Yeah.
Right?
Definitely. I mean, I just see the startup for it being, you know, rocky and rough, because obviously there's plenty of people out there that have already started, have already gone through that rough patch, have their own thing. And how did you find your own personality and your own persona?
Oh, it comes to you very naturally. You find what it is that interests you, and especially I'm talking for a podcaster now, because if it interests you and it makes you want to know more about it, then there are like-minded people out there.
Yeah.
Right. So, in the radio news industry is that I mean, there's so many different ways of assembling your newscast. You've got 5 minutes to inform, educate, and entertain, all at the same time.
Yeah.
So you have to find a way of doing that, and sometimes there's only one story.
Yeah.
And sometimes there's 12 that you can get into that 5 minutes. And when they at one point they took away the 5-minute newscast and they said, okay, we don't need that much news. You're going to have 68 seconds. That's all, 68 seconds. And I had people saying, Larry, what can I get into 68 seconds? And that's the wrong question. The question is, what can I get out of 68 seconds?
It's a good way to look at it. Yeah. I mean, I get really lazy with my things. That's why I'm kind of worried about starting.
When if it ignites your passion, then you won't find it work at all.
Yeah.
It won't be like work. Now, I'm not super familiar with podcasting. Is this something you would have to do every day?
It wouldn't necessarily have to be every day. A podcast that I watch called The Triforce. It's just three guys just kind of telling stories, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
It gets posted, I think, bi-weekly.
Oh, okay.
Or every week, once a week.
Yeah.
So I mean,
because they have to get 3 guys to get their schedule all together and put them down to. Sure, I understand that, but it's you don't. If you can start off with a simple topic one day, and then an experience that you all share, and then maybe a series, in that okay, we're going to see about lobbying City Hall to build a new skate park.
Yeah.
How do we do that? What's the process? And then you say, well, you know what? We sent Herbie down to City Hall and he got these application papers and now he brought these back and we have to fill these out and take people, your audience, through the process and show them how it's done.
It's a really good way to look at it.
And even then, like taking a recorder to the city council meeting where your application is being heard.
Yeah.
And recording how that goes. And that's a series you could break down into 6 different podcasts. And don't forget, next week we're going to City Hall. Wow, it was approved. Okay, 2 weeks from today we're going to the groundbreaking ceremony where they're going to start construction, right? And that's how I would approach it.
Yeah.
Or how do you adopt a dog?
How do you adopt a dog?
Well, you go down to the Humane Society, and there's an interview process.
There is?
Oh, yes, and if they don't like you, if they don't like your answers, you don't get the dog. I had a couple in Toronto. They both worked in radio at the time, and they started to live together. They went down to the Humane Society to get a kitten. They flunked the interview. They had to send a friend down to pass the interview to get that cat and bring it back to them. See, there's all little things that people want to know about but don't know. But I think your podcast could show them.
That's a good idea.